Hi guys, Dr. Justin Berta, the Tattoo Business Doc. As a reminder again, we've got a website, www.tattoobusinessdoc.co.za. Right, so I have been saying for a while in some of the other posts that I'm going to discuss how the system in South Africa now works and kind of bring all the things that I've been discussing in terms of BE, Labour, SARS, and all these kind of things, and into more of a perspective that people understand. Because you have to understand the past to understand where we are now. Now, during apartheid, there was laws that was used to obviously separate white and black and all those kind of things. Now, a person's got to understand that even though South Africa became a republic in the 60s, that the National Party more or less started to gain power from about 1948 forwards. Obviously, from the British rule in the federal parliament that was in place at that stage. So there was, pre-apartheid, or there was apartheid laws in terms of like the Mines and Works Act of 1911, Natives Land Act of 1913. Now those acts kind of governed who could work on mines and those kind of things. And when a person looks at your Natives Land Act, where black people could kind of settle in a homeland back then. The Job Reservation Act of 1957, the Bantu Education Act of 1953. So if a person looks at all the major events and the uprising of the students back in the apartheid years, that was because the government wanted them to have education in Afrikaans, and they didn't want that. So there's a lot of laws that was used in the apartheid era to limit people, to control people, to separate the races within South Africa. You had the Immorality Act of 1927, basically saying that sodomy and all those kind of things, referring to the LGBTQ community, which is today the LGBTQ whatever plus community. Back then, that just didn't happen. Also, sex changes and all those kind of things couldn't happen. The Prohibition of Political Interference Act of 1968, and that was pretty much securing that there couldn't be any sort of outside political interference within South Africa and within the Parliament and all those kind of things. Reservation of a Separate Amenities Act. If you remember back in the days, you'll see photos that says, blacks only, or Caucasians only, or Europeans only. That was used a lot. The pass laws, the pass books that everybody had to carry for you to be in a town, or if you're working for someone as a maid or a gardener, whatever, you had your pass books that allowed you to be on the streets pretty much. The Prohibition of Mixed Marriages Act of 1949, that was brought in so that white people wouldn't marry black people and all those kind of things. The Group Areas Act of 1950, that was again, putting people into certain places, District 6 and all those kind of things in the Cape. So there was a lot of laws, all right, a lot of laws. I mean, if you've got a right to law, who can go where for the toilet, then it is bad. I mean, it is bad. And a lot of these laws were horrible. I myself suffered under these laws because as an open gay man, it was not allowed. Sodomy was only kind of legislated, I think, in about 2002 or a little bit further on. It was taken out of law. And obviously now we can get married, everything else is equal, all rights is equal. And the government loves saying all rights are equal now, but it's not the case. Right, if you look at the new dispensation in South Africa, post-apartheid, the dawn of a new dispensation, which happened in 1994. In 1996, the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa was formed, Act number 108 of 1996. Now, because of this act, now, person's got to understand, the Constitution makes provision that laws may be enacted to correct the injustices of the past. It's in the Constitution. Now, if we don't like it, we should throw stones at Cyril Ramaphosa and his newly appointed ambassador to America, Rudolph Mayer, because they wrote the Constitution. The two of them sat down after the Codesa talks and everything else, and they formulated the Constitution. So if anybody has a problem, those are the two people to blame, because they wrote it. All right. Now you also understand why Ramaphosa defends B and all these laws, because he pretty much wrote it. He pretty much put it into the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. So for him to say, no, it's no longer valid, or we should change, I mean, he's pretty much admitting he made a mistake in the Constitution when he formulated it, when he wrote it. So now we have affirmative action and the Employment Equity Act, number 55 of 1998, which had to kind of rebalance how many people should be employed, how many black, how many Indian, how many colored, how many white, to be more representative of the South African society. But as most things go, people took that and kind of put it onto steroids, and it went kind of insane. And a lot of brain drain happened immediately. I mean, it just happened immediately. People left Eskom, Spoornet, or Spoornet Transnet, and municipalities and local governments, and so many people, I mean, left working for the government. They didn't want to work for a new dispensation. So a lot of brain drain happened immediately, you know, and it was terrible, really. It was a misuse of a law. I mean, I don't think that was the intention of the law. I think the intention was that over time, the imbalance would be corrected. If you look at how the wording of the Employment Equity Act is now, it is going forward and not necessarily the balances of today, or how your company is structured. Skills Development Act of 97 of 1998 as amended came into play. That went along with the Skills Development Levies Act and the Equity Employment Act of 2013. Now, the Skills Act was meant for people to be trained up. Obviously, we know there's a vast difference between education levels between the races in South Africa. It is a reality, it's unfortunate, but it's something that we've got to face. Now, the problem with that act is there's a lot of money that's just lying there, that's not being utilized to train people. And it's basically because a lot of the training colleges and technicons which existed in my time no longer exist. I mean, I remember the Roodepoort Technicon near Westgate, where you could go and learn, you know, your electrical engineering, all your ambachten in the old days, you know, your welders, all those kind of guys, you know, they went there to get accredited and also learn everything else. And that's what Olifantsfontein was all the testing centers that was there. And obviously when the new dispensation came in, the union said, no. Sorry, no white person will teach a black person kind of scenario. And I mean, it's sad, but that happened. It did happen. And unfortunately, most of those testing stations and testing places and colleges and technicons all went for a ball. And skills development was supposed to actually train people. And it follows a lot what the National Party did in the old days, in the 1940s. They first ensured that they took financial control of the country. That's why the National Party started Eskom, Transnet, Spoornet, Krijgkor, which is not, Denel and those kind of things. Mosgas, Sasol, all these things, all these state-owned entities which is around, they started out to employ the Afrikaner male, which we've got to understand, and train them up and teach them how to do things. And it was well managed, well maintained, well funded, because the Afrikaner or the National Party knew they needed to own the economy. And after they have economic emancipation, then they can look towards being the rulers or the government of the day of South Africa. Now, the ANC actually did that also about face. They first took power, and now they're trying to get economic emancipation. But it's a lot like a bull in a china shop, to be honest, because every law they enacted, it went too far because people implemented unilaterally, not really thinking of what the consequences is. But the thing is, if you give somebody freedom that never knew freedom, they won't be able to understand the freedoms that you've given them. I listen a lot, and I mean, the schools with pit toilets is a disaster, man. It's really disgusting. But then if you, like me, have seen how much money has been put into some of the township schools, and to obviously have bathrooms, have better teaching environments, everything else, and the people go and steal literally everything. I mean, they steal the furniture, they steal the literally steal the cable out the bloody walls, lights, everything else. They'll steal the roof, and it's a school. But in reality, if you really look at it, you've got to understand where they come from. And that's why when you look at the apartheid laws and the post-apartheid laws, you get a great understanding of how things kind of went wrong, but also what I'll be trying to address.